How every morning starts. Cup of coffee. And away we go. Hope you enjoy the video. I'm melting. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. It's already in the high 80s. It's just hot. And I can't run the fans when I'm videoing. So here's what I've come up with. The brackets up here, that's the best way you're going to see it, slants to the back just a little bit. So if I attach directly to that bracket with a bucket, if you will, I can tilt back the top part of the radiator just a little bit so it actually fits this bracket, tilt it back a little so that my 8 inches still clears, and I should be fine. Because as long as I'm basically behind, if you can see this, behind this line at the front of here, I'm clear of all of my bracketry and my angle iron. Remembering that that's 8 1/4 inches from the back of the angle iron to the back of this, which stops here. So I have about, figuring 8 inches to be on the safe side. So I should be able to put it right even with that. Still enough clearance in the front. Ooh, there we go again. Be nice if I had some pulleys and stuff on there. So we probably better do that first. So I guess I'll move into a different direction and put brackets on for alternators and AC compressors and see where we're at after that. So see, this is how things work. You got to think ahead, otherwise you run into a problem. If I had mounted the radiator there, the pulley might not have fit on the front of the crankshaft, the water pump wouldn't work, blah blah blah, and there we have more issues. So all right, we'll regroup, start over. Those of you that have been watching for a while understand that this is the most ridiculous, complicated tilt front end on the planet. The problem with that is I wanted to retain the front bumper and the grill. It just looks too darn good to get rid of it, because then it changes the whole face of the car. So in order to do that, it had to go forward, and then it had to go up over so that it cleared the bumper. So I made this little system with the extra arm here, right here, so that once it was forward, it slides straight forward, and as it goes forward, it goes up. And then you pick the nose up and roll it over the front, which makes it ridiculously heavy. Well, one of the problems I have is lateral movement. And by lateral movement, I mean these mounts right here have a tendency to roll to the side. So I've decided to go ahead and put a piece of angle iron in between right here, which just happens to be exactly the length of the angle iron. I bought 36 inches. I did not plan that, but once again, even a blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while. So I'm going to weld that in place. Now that changes a whole bunch of other things which need to be taken into consideration as well. One being radiator placement. Now originally, I was going to put the radiator way up here. But if I put the radiator way up here, as this angle iron comes back, it's going to smack the top of the radiator. Another problem with that is the radiator would have to be low, which means it would be below the thermostat housing, which then I'd have to buy a different thermostat housing with a cap in the top so that I could properly bleed the system and get the air out. By putting this angle iron in, it cures all of that, because now I can put the radiator right here, right in front of the engine. It fits just fine. I have the old existing brackets from the front upper control arms that I can bolt the bracket in, perhaps, and make the radiator fit right here. These will be clear of it because they'll stop. Well, if you check from here, 8 inches, 8 1/2 inches are the stop here. So as it slides back, well, you can't see me now. I'm not going to re-edit. So it's 8 inches from here to where the angle iron is. As it slides back to the stop, it's still 8 inches ahead, which means that the radiator can be anywhere here, which is behind this, but ahead of that, ahead of the motor, and it'll fit in there just fine. So that is the plan at this point. I'm going to go ahead and tack this in place. Problem with this tilt front end is we got to do a lot of measuring and a lot of praying, because I do not have assistance to tilt the front end to confirm that it's going to work. So we got to do that. Another thing that we ran into a problem, and of course it's always something. Let me take you over there, because this is kind of crazy. The timing pointer. Now I bought 3 of these for the front of this engine. Because I'm using a 6-inch harmonic balancer, I had to order a 6-inch timing pointer. Well, the problem is they're all on back order, lost on a boat from China, wherever. So this is a 7-inch. So what I ended up doing was painting the end of the dot orange, and then I bent it down, set it on 0 so everything is zeroed out, and that way I can at least still check my timing. It's not the right way, but the only other way to do it is by ear, and you know how that works. I've been real lucky in the past, but I can't take a chance. This is kind of a, well, an oddball situation to begin with. I don't want to take a chance on just having the timing too far up where you can't hear it detonating because the exhaust is so loud and burning a piston halfway to Bristol, Tennessee. So we're going to continue on. I'm going to tack that in place, start mocking up some brackets. I'll take you along for the ride, and we'll see if we can't figure out a radiator. Onward and upward. Well, today we're going ahead and I put some engine jewelry on there. So we're going to start with the ICT billet alternator bracket, and we're going to see how all this works out. No, I have not glued the windshield in yet, so I can actually put the instructions right in the bottom of the weather strip. Now, I didn't show you installing the windshield because, well, we couldn't, the way the weather strip was set up, use a new weather strip. They do not make the one that we have anymore. I may have already told you all this, but because of that, I had to cut the old one, and we're going to make it work with a little bit of urethane. So, being as we're putting stainless steel bolts in aluminum heads, dissimilar metals create a battery, in case you didn't know, which you probably did. So, I'm going to try and never seize these bolts without getting it in my ears. And those of you that have ever worked with never seize know exactly what I mean. It is the only thing known to man that somehow or another, to get it on your finger, will end up in your shoe. It's like magic. So I put a little never seize on this bolt. I've already assembled it wrong. It goes over top of the water pump, apparently like this. And we'll just get that a little bit snug with our fingers here for starters, because I believe that the next bracket goes on. Now, this doesn't have tightening sequences or anything, so I'm kind of winging it here. We'll get her close, then we'll figure out exactly how everything goes. Then we have a whole load of spacers. So we have two 2.32 spacers, which I can only assume are the 2 longest ones. And they go between this, what the heck is this? And this, like this. Okay, so we need to take 2 long bolts. I got 2 long bolts. Drop one through there, drop one through there. Then we have Trying to do this in front of the camera as best I can. Then we have three 1-inch spacers. Well, it shows, oh, okay, I see. We go the two 1-inch spacers here. Then we go the shorter spacer here. And the third bolt. Oh, this is getting complicated. Through here like this. Then we put the shorter one here. Because then this goes here. Then these go here. I've already boogered it up. These come off. I need more parts. I'll be back. I'm gonna hold on to this because otherwise it's all gonna fall apart again. Now the bottom gets a bolt through the front. Okay, you gotta go up here. You gotta bolt through the front. Then the alternator. And then a spacer. And then a nut. Just like that. And then the top gets a spacer. Where are we at? A bolt through the back. A spacer. And then the alternator. And there she is. And I can tell you right now, well, I guess I need to tighten her up, huh? All right, so let's jack her up and tighten her up. And we'll see where we're at, because this all moves a good bit here. Now I'm not tightening this, I'm just kind of getting it somewhat in there. So she'll still move a little bit, but I don't want to be losing bolts. And there she is. The only question I have, and I'm going to check it right now, is it's probably an illusion. It looks to me like it doesn't quite line up perfectly. And if you're going to spin this thing to any RPM, probably ought to know that up front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my incline meter. Remember, this is an exacting science for me anyway. .80 degrees to the front of the pulley. Wow. 80 degrees to the front of the pulley. 80 degrees to the front of the pulley. I guess it's straight. Okay, so there's one side. Now we're going to go ahead and do the AC compressor. Should be pretty much the same thing on the other side, but I'll flip the sides and you can see that one happen too. So as I was talking earlier in this video about radiator placement, you can see how mistakes would have been made if I hadn't put the water pumping all in. Because right now, it's suddenly way farther forward. So I'm gonna have to make up different brackets. Now I do have the possibility of leaning it this way, leaning it this way, but I wanna have some room. So right about there is probably where she's gonna be. So we'll figure that setup up and go from there. The crazy part is, I was really close to starting to weld. And as with everything else, if you don't second guess yourself, I know it's not a great thing all the time, but if you don't second guess yourself on stuff like this, you can end up cutting parts out, you can end up destroying pieces, and just making an overall mess of things. Now, as near as I can figure, once again, remembering that my brackets are going to come back here 8 inches, which is right to there. My radiator fits inside of the frame rail, so I'm still okay. But I have to remember also that when my bracket comes back, that's where this angle iron's going to be. And it's going to be right about there, probably 2 inches up. So I need to be careful. I've got to be underneath that. So what do? Do you notch the angle iron over here? No, because as it slides back, it's not going to roll over the top of the radiator anyway. So I'm pretty much in a pickle there. I pretty much have to slant the radiator back at the top and forward at the front. So we're going to fiddle with that for a while. And when I finally figure something out, I'll show you what I came up with. Hopefully it'll work the first time. Thought maybe you'd like a shot of the front of the engine, just so you can see how it all comes together. I'm reaching over the hood, but that looks pretty badass, doesn't it?